I just wanted to regard the philosophy of these movies. I think it was mind-bending, but it's something I really identified with. The topic of death is really kind of prevalent in the film, like what it is, what might come after, everything that, how in the second movie is like the dumb irony that this is what he was waiting for his entire life. I think related to it, I found it profound. And in a way, it's also kind of existentialist. I just want to know, what are your thoughts on the philosophy of your filmmaking and what kind of message you're trying to get out of it philosophically?
Thanks. Wow. I think it's dangerous to start out with a message. I think it's the same thing as I was saying before. If you front load your writing too much with, it's hard to put this in words. If you front load it with too much analytical stuff and deeper meanings and hidden codes and things, I think you will just get in your own way. I think it's the things that are there. I'm often not aware of them. I mean, I will realize them years later, and they're things that I've always thought of and been interested in, but I try not to make it heavy-handed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I try to, I like movies where maybe everyone leaves the theater thinking something different. But I think, in a nutshell, life is full of a lot of terrible things. And in the Bill movies, and even, in the Bill movies, I'll start there, the comedy it's like the sugar that makes the medicine go down easier. It's time and place to get the deeper meanings across. I think without the comedy, they might be intolerable movies to watch. And even in the movies that are all comedy, I do think they're coming from the same voice. I think there's the same blood in all of their veins. And I think, like I said, life is full of terrible things, and you have to laugh at them. You have to be able to laugh at them. As soon as you reach the point where you can't, then you're in trouble. And so to that extent, I don't think there are things that you can't make light of or find irony or comedy or uplifting things in. And the death stuff, I hope that in the third one, it's sort of my thought, I guess, that it's not until terrible things happen to you, often, even on a small scale, like someone breaks up with you, or someone gets very sick, or there's an accident, or somebody dies, etc., and there's a diagnosis. It's not until these bad things happen that you're sort of slapped in the face and sort of shaken up, and you realize what you've been taking for granted. You're awake, and at least that's in my experience. And it's not until those things happen that you realize that there are time limits and that there are consequences, and you live, and you actually take bigger steps and take bigger risks, and not just kind of sleepwalk in that zombie mode. And so that's sort of the arc, I think, of the three. And it's, again, this is sort of hindsight, sort of half and half, but that's my philosophy.
Is it?
I don't know. I'm just thinking of the microphone right now. I'm not that smart, I think it's up there. I try not to, and I'm not trying to be coy or weasel out of a question. It's, A, I'm not that smart. B, it's, I've often been bothered by songwriters, for instance. You go to high school and you have a favorite song, a favorite band, and the song reminds you of a memory or a girl, and you listen to it all the time, and it's got this amazing meaning to you. And then you read an article from the songwriter, and he's like, yeah, that was about the political crisis in Guatemala in the 1880s. And it kind of takes the rug out from under you and validates that song, and the song, it's changed. I don't want to lord over it. I don't want to be too, white knuckles on the thing. So I prefer if people have their own, what they take away from it. But your question about philosophy in general, I don't read a lot of it, and I feel like I have a problem, especially with fiction, and fiction books in particular, and I know this is embarrassing, but Gabe is a big book guy, and I can't crack fiction. I can't crack a lot of stories that, and philosophy books as well. I'll get a fiction book recommendation and I'll try really hard to get through it, and I'll get a few pages in, and I'll just start thinking, you know, this guy's just making this up. And I don't know what my problem is. There's something wrong with me. But I love nonfiction. I love science. I grew up on Carl Sagan and Oliver Sacks, memory studies, neurology, psychology, and that's, I think that informs a lot of these films too. I think the theory, and I'm so proud of you about time being eternal like a landscape, that's supposedly a true theory. Thank you. And the tests that Bill goes through in the films, the medical tests, are all based on real studies. So anyway, I'll stop talking.
And in defense of fiction, you're not making documentaries up here.
I watch at least a movie a day. I mean, I watch fiction movies, bread and butter. But I don't have the patience for the books. I don't know what my trouble is.
Time for one last question.
I never knew that you were interested in film, like live action film, excuse me. And you were mentioning how expensive it is, and it's great to see that you're doing so much with real film. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but things like digital are pioneering and making it very cheap nowadays. So is there any plans of going into live action anytime soon, now that it's maybe a little cheaper and more possible?
Sure. I wouldn't rule it out. I still think in terms of animation. I'm going to do, hopefully, a feature film next that would be animated, but would, of course, have to be digital because, I mean, I work with the cameras for these films because of the effects, and you get things you couldn't get with a computer, but if it's a straight story, digital, there's no reason not to. But most of my heroes are live action guys, like Monty Python, Kubrick we talked about, silent films, and David Lynch, I think is huge. But I still think in terms of live action, but I get inspiration from these guys. And David Lynch in particular is one that, I'm not ashamed to drop his name. I have been lucky enough to hang out with him, and it's the sort of thing where you just shut up and listen. And he's, this doesn't leave this room. He's hilarious. I mean, and I think his movies are hilarious in parts, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate just how dry his humor is. But we were talking once about pedophiles. As you are wont to do. And he had this amazing thing. We were talking about how it's tragic because they're repeat offenders and they can't help themselves. They're in and out of jail, and there's not really a cure. It seems like they're just going to keep hurting people. And he's like, well, you know what they got to do. You get an island that nobody's using. It's a beautiful tropical island that nobody's using. And you take all the pedophiles. They'll go voluntarily because it's beautiful. It's a paradise. You relocate all of the pedophiles to this paradise, and you stock the island with these little Gary Coleman robots. The pedophiles will be happy. They won't hurt anybody else. They won't be too inconvenienced, and everybody wins. And I can't argue with that. He bleeds jewels, this man. I don't know. Do you guys want to do one more?
Well, anyone in the way back? Perhaps way back in the dark.
I'm not
We
working
can't
with
say
glasses. It makes you
much.
guys less terrifying, so I can't see anybody.
I just wanted to ask if you had any advice for future animators who wanted to survive independently outside of the main industry with their own ideas, as you have.
Wow. Like I said, I'm making this up as I go, so I don't, maybe it's good advice to not take too much advice, to heart. there are so many avenues now. There's the internet, there's film festivals still. I still hit the film festivals very hard. I think, like, you can't replace this. And this is part of the reason that I tour. It's for very selfish reasons. Honestly, I love hiding in the back of the audience and just listening. When your movie releases online, and I've only had one short released kind of online. Showtime put Wisdom Teeth, the first one, on the internet, Showtime, the cable channel. And it was very anticlimactic for me. You get a phone call, and it's like, oh, the film's online today. Okay, let's okay. Refresh. Maybe there's a comment. And it's night and day compared to this, you know, the energy of the audience, the highs and the lows, and seeing if a film fails or in this city or sinks and swims. I think that's irreplaceable for an artist. I think it's like spending a long time, you know, 2 years, 3 years. It's like you're making a present for somebody and you want to be there to see them open it. So I think for any artist, whether you're in a band, making movies, like, this is irreplaceable. And that's what film festivals can do. You know, you get the vibe of the audience and you get an understanding of how the film plays. And it's you know, there's still film festivals playing tons of shorts. But having said that, you know, if you just want to get a job, just, you know, online, you can't really beat that. If you don't want to make a living, because you can't really make a lot of money from that. I would say, the most important thing, the only thing that I can say that I've actually learned is that of all my heroes and all my friends who are doing everything they've wanted to do, and still are, I don't think they're super geniuses. I don't think they're special. I think they just worked harder than everybody else. I think that's really all there is. You know, they're the weirdos who are working in their dark little corners in the world. They're not at the party. They're not, you know, playing video games tonight. They're working on their project because it's all they know to do. And for animation especially, you know, it's 7 days a week, never a break for years. And, you know, even if you're lucky enough to be born a Mozart or somebody who's just dripping with great ideas, it's really just 10% of it or less. 90% of anything creative is grinding it all out, writing it all down, you know, every single page of a novel. You know, I think the best bands rehearse the most. I think the best writers write a lot. And animators, you know, I've described animating before. It's like you have a novel in your head, but the only way to grind it out is like by etching it into a rock with your fingernails, one letter at a time. You know, it's all ready to go, but this is the process you have to go through in one page. And that's really it. You know, I think there's no trick other than just putting in those hours. And you know, you sacrifice, of course. You know, I don't know where a lot of my 20s went. I feel like it's like I got a phone call one day. It's like, this is how old you are now. And I don't feel my age. But so much of it is on the screen, and so much of it is forgotten because your brain stops paying attention when you do the same sort of routine every day working on a project. But you know, if you go skiing, that means you can't go scuba diving. You know, there's trade-offs everywhere in life, and I think for some people it makes more sense than others. I don't know. But like I said, you know, I'm still making this up as I go. I'm still surprised that anybody shows up to these things. I don't know how anybody finds out about this. There's no budget for advertising or marketing. Every time a new DVD is out, it pays for the next movie. And there's no distributors. It's all you guys literally paying for the next projects. And I don't know how this happened. I really, but you know, I'll keep carrying on as long as I can. I've never had a job other than doing this, and I hope to keep not having a job.
As I know some of you still have questions, we're actually going to be out in the lobby. Just give us a minute to head out there. We've got DVDs for sale, of course, and Don will be out there too. So please meet us out in the lobby. We'll see you in just a moment. And thank you very much for coming.